Greetings, everyone. Today we're going to talk about Jesus, the God-man. 100% God, 100% man. That is what the Scripture teaches. His divine nature is revealed in Revelation 1:8, Revelation 1:11, Revelation 21:6, and Revelation 22:13, where he's referred to as the Alpha and Omega. That's a title for God. In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, he's called the Mighty God. And in John 8:58, he takes the title I Am. I Am is the title of God revealed to Moses at the burning bush. And the defining verses are John chapter 1, verse 1, and chapter 5, verse 18, where the Word is called God. The Word is Jesus. John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So that's beyond dispute. Jesus is God. But he's also man. You'll find those verses, John chapter 1, verse 14, Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14, Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15, Colossians chapter 2, verse 9, and Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 8, and chapter 2, verses 6 through 7. And here, Jesus takes on this additional nature. And he's called the Son of Man, John chapter 3, verse 13. So he is the Son of Man, and he is also the Son of God. Both titles, 100% man, 100% God. 1 Timothy 2:5 cements that concept because Jesus is called the mediator. To be a mediator, you must be able to equally represent both parties. In this case, Jesus represents God and he represents man. Purity in the flesh. The flesh that he took on is called sinful flesh, yet he committed no sin. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 14, and Hebrews chapter 2, verse 17. This reflects back on the sacrificial lamb in the Old Testament. The lamb was without blemish. That's a theme that is constantly reinforced throughout the Old Testament. The lamb must be without blemish. Jesus was made sin. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21. That doesn't mean that he sinned. That's a reference to the Old Testament when the priest laid his hand on the head of the sacrificial lamb. The priest had just prayed with the congregation. He then took their sins to the altar and he put his hand on that sacrificial lamb without blemish, and those sins were imputed to the lamb. The lamb didn't sin, but the sins of the people were imputed to a perfect, flawless, unblemished lamb. Lambs don't sin. In the likeness of sinful flesh, you will find that stated in Romans chapter 8, verse 3. So yet he took on sinful flesh, but he did not sin. Thus, we can only conclude that Jesus is 100% God and 100% man. This is made firm when John calls him the mediator between God and man. To be a true mediator, he must be equally God and equally man, therefore able to justly and without bias represent both parties. If Jesus was only man, he could only be an advocate for man. Conversely, if he was only God, then he could not claim to share in our suffering and truly represent us. Thank you for listening. May God go with you.